you mentioned defense. Let's pivot off that to end this conversation, which is CISA, which is part of Department of Homeland Security, which is not part of defense, but is certainly a large government entity nonetheless. um, uh, Introduced their initiative at RSA conference this year in June called Secure by Design. And I know we were one of the first vendors to sign on to it. And it's certainly easier to sign when you've done most of the items in the list ahead of time. That was a great advantage for us because I think we've made a lot of great progress in our products and platforms the last few years on trying to be progressive about adopting these standards that we're talking about, and not just waiting for a standard to come along. But like, how do you feel that's progressing, right? I mean, I know we've got internal metrics when I attend our meetings that we're like measuring how we're progressing on the areas where we had gaps. CISA seems to be welcoming a open and useful conversation with the community and not just dictating. So how's that been for you?
So pledges tend to not be worth the paper that they're printed on. I think the success or failure of Secure by Design is really going to come down to its counterpart. I'll give a quick explanation of Secure by Design. So the Secure by Design talks about eliminating unforgivable vulnerabilities from software. It talks about having a set of investments in the defaults. Secure by default is counterpart component. Like the first time you boot up a device, it doesn't have a default password of username admin, password admin. It forces you to create a unique password the first time you're booting it up. Things like mandatory multi-factor authentication in your product. So there's a number of different elements to Secure by Design. And the Secure by Design pledge is basically an opportunity for software vendors, not just cybersecurity software vendors, but all software vendors to say, we're going to do our best to adhere to the principles that are defined by Secure by Design. And we're going to provide public updates to the progress that we're making in pursuit of those different initiatives, which is exactly what we did when we signed. We had a publication on our Trust Center, and it basically described where we were on the 7 pillars and the progress that we intend to make. We've got it embedded within the OKRs of the company as well, so we're measuring the progress along the way. We're taking it pretty seriously. Not everybody takes pledges seriously, though. And I'm not saying we take it more seriously than everyone. I'm sure there are many vendors who take it as seriously as we do, but we take it very seriously. The thing that I think is going to make it work is that counterpart, and that's Secure by Demand. This is where you have not just the supply side, where you've got vendors who are pledging to do the right thing, but you've got an update to the way that buyers think about their relationship with their vendors and the expectation that they have with the vendors. And basically, Secure by Demand states that you should vote with your procurement dollars. And if you're going to select a vendor, and it could be a vendor for a firewall, it could be a SaaS vendor, it could be a vendor for IoT devices that you're using within your home or your business, basically have a conversation with them about, have they signed up to the Secure by Design pledge, and are they actually adhering to the principles, and are they making progress along the way? Memory safe languages, a number of other really, really important initiatives that are included in there. So what this does is it normalizes a conversation between a buyer and a vendor about the importance to the buyer of having this kind of good security discipline and hygiene, and an investment, putting their money where their mouth is. And in particular, I think this pertains to the cybersecurity industry. There shouldn't be a cybersecurity vendor who isn't signed up to this. There shouldn't be a cybersecurity vendor who doesn't take this seriously. And the reason for that is because it's our job. This is what we do. People are trusting us to secure them. So the least we can do is actually put the effort into doing the right things along the way so that we can improve the likelihood of us not becoming the point which allows our customers to be victimized. The other reason this is so important is because I think we need to lead by example. So if we really want to see the rest of the industry, and I mean this in the broad sense of the software industry outside of cybersecurity, if we want to see them take this seriously, we have to demonstrate that we're taking it seriously. I think it's a really important initiative. I hope it just continues to get more and more traction. I hope that people really embrace the Secure by Demand side of things, and they do vote with their procurement dollars, because it's going to be the demand that's actually going to drive the change in the behaviors.
Yeah, I think you mentioned it earlier when we started talking about digital detritus, and I think it's probably a good place for us to wrap up the conversation, but it's going to be driven by the money in the end, not the pledge. And we've seen this time and time again that Europe can pass all the regulations they want, but what really affects change, certainly what's affected change in my experience in the United States, was US government won't contract from you unless you meet certain criteria. And suddenly nobody wants to not have some of those billions of dollars that are being spent in the appropriations bill, and they'll all step into line and do the thing. I mean, whether it's common criteria or whatever, pick a thing, FIPS, whatever. Like,
Yeah.
what drives it is the spend, and the government's most powerful tool is probably that spend in encouraging our behavior. And if secure by design becomes a principle that turns into one of these things that you must comply with in order to get some of that government cash, then that's where it's going to have a massive impact, right?
Yeah. Create a tight coupling between security and ARR, and the market will respond.
Yeah, I mean, it's not my personal way about going about life, but it would be foolish to ignore the power of the dollar. So on that, I wish we had more time to chat more often, but now that you're CEO, we don't get to have these chats very often. So it's kind of fun
Yeah.
to record it and share it with the world, because this conversation is probably what we would have had we not been recording, just because this is what we do at Sophos. So I really appreciate you finding time in your schedule, and please provide us feedback for those of you that are listening. We're always interested in hearing your thoughts, and you find all of us on LinkedIn primarily these days. And if you're interested in our Pacific Rim report, you can go to sophos.com/Pacific Rim. And to remind folks, Joe mentioned our trust center at trust.sophos.com. And all of our great research from our XOps team that I'm a part of is at news.sophos.com in the threat research tab. So we're grateful you spent your time with us, and we'll talk again next time. See you later, Joe.
Thanks. See you, Chet.